Hi, everybody. Um, I was shot and it paralyzed me. I am talking about a bullet, but I'm not talking about me. Um, I was shot also by a vaccine and that paralyzed me. But the ones I'm talking about now are on a Facebook group that I'm on. It's a paraplegic support group. And what happens a lot of times is somebody gets on, and as they get in, they introduce themselves, and they have a picture of themselves, and they say what's wrong with them, what kind of paraplegia they have, which part of the vertebrae was damaged, and etc. And what I've been seeing a lot recently is people get on the site, and it'll be a younger person, 20s, 30s, and the reason that they're paraplegic is because they were shot, and it just should not happen. I mean, these are people who very good shape otherwise. They could be walking around enjoying their lives and um, you know being human, rather than being a paraplegic. But it's and a lot of times it's teens. I mean, somebody that's was shot as a teen, um, they'd be in awesome shape other than that, except for our guns, and gun laws. And, I mean, last week we had another mass shooting. I'm not even going to say what mass shooting, because I can make that statement almost any week of the year, and there would have been a mass shooting the week before that in the United States. So that statement could be at any time. Our gun laws are completely ridiculous. And if you go back and watch my watch my video on the Second Amendment, the Second Amendment does not give everyone the right to bear arms. It doesn't. It says you can do it to be part of a government organization. It doesn't say just anybody can carry a weapon with them anywhere. Um, we're the worst civilized nation in the world when it comes to shootings because we have more guns than we do people in this country. It's ridiculous. And why is that? Why are we in this position right now? It's very easy answer really. It's the gun manufacturers. They pay all these lobbyists to go in and pay our politicians and get them to, and they made up the whole Second Amendment BS, stating that everybody can have a weapon. And here's a secret that I believe. I believe that the NRA and gun manufacturers, they actually like mass shootings. And here's why. It causes more people to buy guns, gives them more business. So if you scare people, you buy more guns. So the more shootings there are, the more it helps the gun manufacturers because more people get scared and buy guns. They come up with the whole thing, you can only stop a bad guy with a gun with a good guy with a gun. Well, how's that working out for you? I'm not hearing about any bad guys with guns getting killed by the good guys by the guns and with guns, and we have plenty of guns out there, so you can't say it's by lack of guns. So where are these good people with the guns who are supposed to be stopping the bad guys with it? It's BS. It's just not happening. And instead of putting in reasonable laws, they even tell schools and churches, just lock their doors and their windows, and they tell teachers, to arm themselves and carry guns themselves. Teachers doing that. How would that have helped the church, where somebody fired from outside of the building through the window and killed people? It wouldn't help at all. You could lock it up. You could have the pastor himself could have a gun, and that would not have saved anybody there. And can you bring a gun to an NRA convention? This is kind of a mixed answer because they did in fact ban guns from I think the 2023 NRA convention, and they also banned the guns from many of the hotels that the NRA um, suggests that their members use. For the hotels, when they're going to the convention. Now I know that um, for the one convention in question, it was because I think the president was going to be having a discussion. It was going to be there and speaking there, so the Secret Service made it not happen. But my point being though, the NRA has a lot of qualms and fears about allowing guns to be in their own meetings and everything like that. Good because they know how dangerous it is. You know, I'm not asking for this, and I don't want it to happen. But imagine if somebody, a wild bad guy with a gun, went into an NRA meeting and then started shooting them in there. Would that finally change their opinion on that? I just don't know. I mean, I don't want it, but you just wonder sometimes what would it take to change their opinions on things, because some of the gun advocates, have only changed their opinion when somebody in their own family gets hurt because of it. I know some politicians that changed their viewpoint after some mass murders and things where they did do that, and I don't know. I don't want that. I mean, I just want us to be smart, with our gun laws. You know, and I know they compare things to like the Wild West. They think that the United States always had guns, and and a lot of people don't know that in the Wild West, when people with guns went into a town to drink and have food and things like that, a lot of the towns required the people to hand their guns over to the sheriff when they came into the town, so they're not walking around with guns all the time. So that's good common gun law there. Australia, there was a mass murder, mass shooting where 50 people were killed in 2019, and do you know what they did? And I'm thinking, is it Australia or is it New Zealand? No, actually, it's New Zealand. I think so. You know what New Zealand did? When after this mass murder, 1 month later, their politicians got together and they banned assault rifles and they banned any kind of weapons like that. And they made it so that anyone that had these weapons had to bring them in, turn them in, and if they didn't, they could get up to a 5-year sentence, in jail for it. And they were paid for the guns, when they turned them in, and they were allowed to keep some certain type weapons, but assault rifles and everything, and were gone. They couldn't do it anymore. And the only way you could get a gun ownership of any kind in that country was to be thoroughly vetted. Even Israel, which lives completely surrounded by enemy countries, they have way stronger gun laws than we do on things. And us, all we have, thoughts and prayers. Somebody gets shot, oh, thoughts and prayers. Our thoughts and prayers go to them. I don't know. What happens in countries that have gun control? Less mass shootings. That's what they have. So the gun lobby, they own our government. They want to sell more guns, and the only way to do that is to scare people, and pay off our politicians, um, and so our politicians are almost as evil. They're as evil as the lobbyists are, and the NRA, and the gun manufacturers who are doing that. We just need our government to get off their asses and stop thinking and praying and do something about these guns. The Second Amendment does not give everyone the right to carry weapons of mass destruction, to carry assault rifles. It does not allow you to do that. Read the Second Amendment, then read Section 8 of the Constitution, where it says the only reason that you get a gun is so that you can serve in a government-controlled militia, run by the government, trained by the government. Read it. Don't tell me, oh, the Second Amendment gives me that right. Before you tell me something like that, you go and you read it first. Read the Second Amendment, all 27 words. It's 27 frickin' words of the amendment. So read that amendment there, and then read Section 8, which is the reason that's a Second Amendment. The amendment was an amendment to Section 8 on there. So that was all because we didn't want to have standing armies for more than 2 years in the United States. So we needed to have a well-armed, government-run militia to protect our country from invaders and insurrectionists and things like that. So I guess I just wanted to go on it again because every time I talk about guns, I'll talk about it, and then I'll have a bunch of people, do the down thumb on my discussion because they disagree with me on this. But you know what? before you disagree with me, look it up, okay? So anyway, that's all I want to talk about today. Thank you for tuning in on that, and for all the paraplegics that are that way because of guns. I hope people will finally see you and your injury for what it is, and then do something about it instead of thoughts and prayers. We need people to actually get off their butts and handle this. And if you're in a wheelchair, you can't get off your butt very easy. But anyway, thank you for listening, and take care, and hope nobody shoots you. Bye. Bye.